everybody, and welcome to today's video where we're going to try to answer one simple question, and that is how to create some intersecting geometry with welding. Now what I actually mean is that I actually got a request to showcase how you can make something like this. Now this by its own, it's not something that's going to be too complicated, because for this entire structure you can basically simply use a spline and give it some renderable width, and you can get this bar shape. But the interesting part is this portion over here where the actual bar intersects with another one coming perpendicular to it or coming from the side. So let's see how we can get this kind of geometry flowing and intersecting with each other, and at the place where it's intersecting we can put in some welding. Now for this I'm going to use these two very primitive cylinders. As you can see, nothing is done to them. They're basic cylinders, 25 centimeter radius, so they're rather big. So let's start. First thing, like always, is that whenever you want to model something, you either have to drop in an edit poly or convert it to an editable poly. So I'm going to go convert to an editable poly. And now I want to go ahead and delete the top and the bottom polygons, as they won't be needed for this case. And I'm going to select my other side, and now again convert to an editable poly. Now here's what I want to do. If you watched my previous video for geometry flows, you basically saw me do something similar to this, where I would take the edge here and I went and made a shape out of the selection, made it linear. So let me select it, enable in viewport, in renderer, turned off, put it up front a bit, and now I can select my original mesh or my original bar that I want to have my cut in made on, and I can go in my compound objects. So simply go over here, select compound objects, and click on shape merge. So from here, pick the shape you want to imprint here, and once you click it, you're going to see something like this happening. Now, in rare occasions, something like this can happen, where your line is going to get projected to the back of this side. Nothing to worry about, as we can just use some simple tricks here and fix that issue right away. So I'm going to drop an edit poly, select this one and this one, right click, and I'm going to connect both of them. And now select this one, control and backspace, so I can delete it. Select this one, control backspace, and it's deleted. Now, like I mentioned in my previous videos, whenever you use shape merge, it has a tendency to leave some unwanted vertices behind. So click on one, and that is going to activate your vertex view. So from here, I'm going to go on and turn on ignore backfacing. What this does, it's going to make sure that when I'm selecting these vertices, that I'm only selecting what I'm seeing. Otherwise, if this wasn't selected, as you can see right now, I can select the back one, the one in the back, because I can see it. But if I turn it on like this and I have ignore backfacing, I can go as many times as I want like this. The back face shouldn't be selected. So ignore back facing on and select the extra vertices, the ones that we don't need. All right, again, select those, control backspace so we remove those. Make sure we have everything okay. All right, awesome. Now simply select the part that we marked up and delete it, so we end up with a hole. I'm going to right click and isolate or end the isolation. So like this. And now I'm going to select my portion over here and attach it with the incoming bar from the side. Again, select both of these sides since we won't need them. We can delete them. And now, here's the interesting part. Since we used the shape from this cylinder to cut in on this cylinder, you're going to notice that the number of sides on both of these is exactly the same. So when you have this kind of case where you have both sides are the same number or both splines are the same number of sides, you can simply select both of them by holding down Control, select both of them and hit the bridge button. This is by far the easiest way to connect two geometries like this. So we're going to click OK, and since it connected it like this, we are left with a perfect geometry. Well, near perfect. The near perfect part is this part over here. As you can see, it cuts in on this edge, and here we are left with basically a big angon. Since we don't want to have any angons, but this is a really easy fix, we simply go over with a cut one over here, and cut over to the other side. Now, just so we make sure that we have everything lined up, so we don't get any distortions, I'm going to scale this on the Z so everything is flat, like this. And now I'm going to turn on my snap toggle, make sure that it's set on vertex. So right click on snaps, make sure it's on vertex, turn on snap, click on the Z axis. So we're not going to click on any of these, but click on the Z and simply drop it here. So that's going to put all of those three edges in line with this vertex. So now, if we take a look, we actually merged those two shapes. And here's the interesting part. Once we put on the turbo smooth, everything is looking really nice, really crisp, and no issues. Turn on 2 iterations, and this looks quite well. So now if we take a look at our image, we basically have this happening, but we just need to add in this effect over here. So this is not too hard to get. All we got to do is simply decide where we want to have it. So if, let's say, this portion is this portion over here, or this one over here, I want to have the indention be this side. So on top of the turbo smooth, I'm going to put on an edit poly, click this edge, ring it, hold down Control. With this selection, hold down Control and click on polygon. That is going to make sure that all the polygons that are touching our selection that we have made is selected like this. So with this, we can either choose to go and inset this, or I can again go back, connect this like this. So it's going to add in an extra edge and extrude it either inwards or outwards depending on where we want it to be. So let's say something like this. Just make sure we don't get any tapering so it doesn't get too close to the edges. I think this is looking fine for now. And now here's the interesting part. Once you're here, just make sure you create a shape. So click here in the settings, create a shape, put it in linear, and let's call it filling. All right, now select our shape or select the spline that we made. Give it some thickness, so enable it in render and in viewport so we can see it. By default, it should have like 1 as a value, even though I'm working in centimeters. I'm not sure what you guys are working in, but just give it some bigger thickness so it kind of fills up that void. Now, here's the interesting part. welding on its own really doesn't look like this. It's much more garbled. It's noised up. So in order to get that look, we can use the turbo smooth to give us a bit more geometry to play around with. And now on top of our turbo smooth, I'm going to go over and I'm going to choose a displace modifier. Now the displace modifier is working exactly if you were like if you had any kind of a material and on the surface you placed a displace map. It's going to try to garble up the geometry. Now I'm going to increase the strength here, but as it is by default, it's not controlled by anything. So in our map, I want to place something that is going to help us control this. So I can either go with a cellular or I can go with a noise. Cellular is, well, would be better for me because the white spots are going to be bigger. I'm going to show you exactly what it means right now. I'm going to select it as a cellular. Right away, you're going to notice that we have some deviation starting to happen in our model, but still not enough. So let's click on M so we can open our material editor. Click and drag our cellular in a empty space here. And now I can use my characteristics and decrease the size of this. As I'm decreasing the size, you're going to notice that our welding is really starting to wobble up. We can see some waviness here. Now, if I go with the fractal, I can add an extra level of detail, but really don't need to go that deep. I can decrease the blur to 0.5, although I don't think it's going to be that much visible. And now I can increase the overall strength, so we can get something like, well, let's not overdo it. Right, with this, now on top of it, I'm going to put in another turbo smooth so it can smooth out the things that we did. Put an additional turbo smooth on our original model. And there we go. With both of these, I'm going to put in the black color for them. Both of these done like this, you actually end up with a weld that's not faked by a texture, but it's rather really nice geometry that you can play around with, and it's going to cast some really nice shadows. And with this, if we compare it to what we have here, we're going to notice that we have quite a bit of similarities. Now, for this, if we give it some nice texture, it's going to end up looking really realistic. All right, so I can either stop here or we can go ahead and I can show you one more case in which you would utilize welding, but it would be for different types of pipes. So for this, I'm going to hide my scene right now. I'm going to unhide this one. All right, so here we have a very similar scene like from what we started in the beginning, but instead of having a cylinder coming into another cylinder, we actually have a box, which is common enough that when you're working with mechanical models, you're going to have many times you're going to have bars coming into cylinders. So how do we deal with a problem like this? Well, you always guide yourself by the basic principle of define and refine. So first of all, we have to define where these two are going to meet. So how do we do this? Well, I'm going to select my cylinder. Again, I'm going to right click, convert it to an editable poly. I'm going to select the top and the bottom, delete them both. And now I'm going to skip over in my front viewport. From here, I can see the outline where my box is. So here, with my edge selected, I'm going to click on Slice Plane. That is going to show me this yellow line, which in turn is actually plane that I can move around. So what I want to do here is I want to click on my snap and pull my here we go. Pull my splice line on the line where the box is intersecting with our cylinder, and click on slice, and then move it downwards here and slice. So with that, we end up with 2 cuts going all over, all across our cylinder. So again, I'm going to attach my box to this so both of them are the same model. I'm going to delete the front and the back of the box, and now I'm going to delete these 4 edges over here. So all of the guys that are facing towards my box. All right, now here is a problem that I have that is kind of different from what we had previously. Previously we had an 8-sided cylinder meeting with another 8-sided cylinder, and we could have just used bridge and connect them both. Well, in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4-sided box, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 10-sided cylinder. So in order to get more sides, what I'm going to do is select this side, ring, and connect. Make sure it's only set at 1. That is going to put it smack in the middle. So again, ring, connect, and ring, connect, and on the bottom, ring, connect. All right, so now what I want to do here is, if I take a look from the side, we're going to notice this edge that is going on the side of the box, it's missing on our cylinder. So again, let's select all of those edges that are missing on the cylinder, click on connect, and there we go. We have those edges. So here's what we're going to do now. We're manually going to select this edge and this edge and bridge them. These two and bridge. And now this is the important part. I'm going to select this one and skip the one on the top. So select both of those, bridge. Select both of those down, bridge. Skip over to the other side. Do the same thing here as well. Bridge, bridge. It's a bit of a tedious work, but it has to be done. It simply takes a bit of time, but no biggie. All right, so what we are left with now is these holes. These holes can easily simply be selected with the border now, like this, and you can cap them. And here is the interesting part now. Once you cap them, they're basically triangles. But let's see what happens when we turn on Turbo Smooth. And let's up the iteration. We're going to notice that those triangles are no longer present. The reason for this is that whenever you are using Turbo Smooth will never leave triangles behind. It's always a great thing that if you can eliminate them, to do so, but if you leave them somewhere and they're on a flat surface, it really won't make too much of a difference. So as you can see, the highlight here is really nice. It's following that curve. So before we go up front and see what else we can do, I want to make sure that everything is clean here. So yeah. All right. So with the Turbo Smooth, if I put it on like this, what you're going to notice is the lack of definition on these edges. Now, we saw that here we actually had a bar, so it was a box coming in here, but since we put it in a Turbo Smooth, that definition on the edges has been lost. So And the way to retain that definition is select all the edges that are coming in our side over here, and go ahead, and just so we make it easier for us, I'm gonna select both of these edges, like these two, hold down Control, backspace. That is going to remove those edges. And again, I'm gonna select the top and the bottom ones, and I'm going to chamfer them. Now I'm going to chamfer them and make sure we have quad chamfer selected. And here I'm going to reduce the edge tension to 0.5. That means that the middle line is going to stay exactly in the middle, and only these two guys are going to move on the sides like this. Alright, 0.4 should work, or 0.5, and click OK. Now, what we're left with is these funny looking star shape. Well, not star shape, but, well, useless geometry that is not doing anything. So what we want to do here is simple. We basically want to go ahead and target weld this back so it flows here, and do the same thing on this side. So target, weld, and back. So now we are left with these two edges that are basically stopping here and making n-gons. That is something we don't want to have, so I'm going to select the one on the top and select this edge over here, and right click and connect. That is going to make sure that this edge, as it's running, it's continuing on to the cylinder. So do the same thing on this side, connect, and we have the top one sorted out. Now the problem here is, how do we deal with this bottom one? Because if we go over and connect it like this, we're gonna end up with a problem, because here now we're gonna have another triangle. So instead of doing it like that, I'm gonna go ahead, select these guys like this, so all across, and put in a connect. Now, if you have seen my previous video, you're gonna remember that when you have edge flow, you want to go from having a very sharp line transition into a less sharp or more mild curve. You want to have your geometry spaced out correctly. So now I'm going to select both of these and connect them like this. Again, on this side, connect. And now if I put on the turbo smooth, you're going to notice that on my top part where I did all the cleanup, I can actually see that we have retained this sharpness of the edges really nice, and as it's coming in, our cylinder is transitioning into the cylinder shape. Now, since I only did this on the top, I haven't done it on the bottom, and as I can see here, I have a symmetry line in the middle, so I'm gonna use that and put my pivot in the middle over here, which is going to allow me to go down here above my edit poly, drop a symmetry modifier, put it on the Z, and it is going to mirror everything I did on the top to the bottom. Again, put an edit poly so I can work. And here it is. Now when we turbo smooth, we can see that same exact shape, and you're gonna notice that even with the highlight, there is no breakup. The highlight is perfect, and it's the transition from the cylinder to the box is perfect. The edges are perfectly rounded up, and our geometry is basically flawless. Now if you want to have a more defined edge here for our cylinder, all we have to do is manually come in, drop in an extra edge over here. Then it would require one more for the bottom. And now, with all of those changes done, we have this really nice defined. Again, if we want to have that welding, simply on top of our turbo smooth, edit poly, select where you want to have that welding. I don't know, maybe here. Yeah, this looks like the middle line. Yep. All right. One more here. And with this, simply go extrude. Give it some negative height. All right, there we go, like this. Create shape. Linear. All right, in this case, we're gonna need it to be thinner. We don't need it to be that thick. Same thing all over again. Turbo smooth, so we get in more geometry. Then a displacement modifier. With the map, we're gonna use the same one that we did previously. So make it an instance. Give it some strength, like, I don't know. All right. Cylinder. Yep. Make it a cap. Yeah. It can be cylinder. Like this. It's okay. And turbo smooth this thing. And there we go. We got this nice welding. And it looks realistic. With that, we basically made the welding, and I showed you guys how you can get two different types of geometry flow into each other and flow seamlessly. So if you guys enjoyed watching this video, then don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, as it really does help a lot. And that would be it for this video. I hope you guys managed to learn something new, and well, that's all, folks. Until next time, I'll see you all in the next video.